Now, the blue economy, which has generated from the ocean, supports 90% of global trade and provides millions of jobs. It includes shipping, tourism, and offshore energy, valued at about $24 trillion. To harness the resources from the blue economy, Nigeria, in collaboration with the African Union through the African Union Inter-African Bureau for Animal Resources, is set to develop a national blue economy strategy for Nigeria. We have in the studio one of the stakeholders to discuss the national blue economy strategy, which is in the making. She is no other person but Dr. Ebinimi Ansa, National President of the Fisheries Society of Nigeria. You're welcome to Business Express at this point in time.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm glad to be here.
Good. Blue economy is synonymous to fisheries, and you happen to be the president of the Fisheries Association. There has been a whole lot of talk about the fisheries at the WTO. We're talking about fisheries subsidies. We're talking about our waters being exposed to people coming from outside the shores of Nigeria to actually fish on our waters. And we also understand that this part of the economy generates about 49 million jobs in Africa and is expected to grow to about 57 million by 2030. How are we doing in terms of utilizing the huge potential in the blue economy?
Thank you very much. So you have the figures for Africa. Africa has huge potential for establishing the sector. First, you must know that this sector is multi-dimensional. We have different players that make up the blue economy. So we have the living resources, the living aquatic resources. We also have the non-living resources. And so when we look at the blue economy, our thinking should be holistic. And that is what the Federal Ministry of Marine and Blue Economy is pushing forward. And we have different aspects of this blue economy. The fisheries resources are there, the ports, the shipping, the blue energy. We have the blue carbon ecosystem services and the blue tourism. So all these form that blue economy that is generating millions of jobs for Africans and indeed for Nigerians. And so establishing a ministry for that purpose has been a large stride by this present government, and we believe that we are going in the right direction, engaging with stakeholders from the different sectors, be it fisheries, energy, shipping, transportation, and all the various components, including the blue energy and the blue tourism sectors in the blue economy. So we are doing very well, and we are being guided and helped because it is something that Nigeria alone may not be able to achieve. So we have to work in collaboration with other stakeholders within our national sphere, in the region, and also in the international community.
Okay, having said that aptly, talking about how vast the blue economy is and the efforts by the present administration to harmonize and bring in collaboration, bring in all other sectors to work together under one ministry. Let's talk about fisheries, which is actually your own turf. How has the fisheries business been in Nigeria, talking about consumption in country as well as exports?
Regarding the fisheries sector, I would like to start by saying that we are a net importer. As a country, we're a net importer of fish. So it means that we produce less fish than we consume. So we have to export to make up for that deficit. And that is quite sad because we have what it takes to boost that industry. And it's two ways. We have the capture fisheries, We also have the aquaculture. Now, in the capture industry, we have the artisanal or the small-scale fisheries, and we also have the industrial fisheries where you have the big players, the trawler owners and all that. But it will surprise you to know that the small-scale fisheries contributes 74% of what is brought in as captured fish from the river systems, the inland water systems, from the ocean and the brackish water habitat. So they have a very big role to play in this industry. And then from aquaculture, we have the main fish being produced is the catfish. Now, for decades, we have been producing catfish, and right now, Nigeria is the highest producer of catfish in the African continent. Still, we are not meeting the demand for fish in our nation. And we also have a wide variety of fish in our natural water bodies. Unfortunately, we are focusing only on catfish. So
so let me hold your thoughts at this point. You have mentioned some of the challenges, as it were, and need I remind us all, today is Salah, and you agree with me that on the menu of a good number of Nigerians, fish will be served, and catfish will be there. And if you move around Abuja and other parts of the country in the night, you see a lot of people at the gardens, all the green areas, you see catfish being roasted. And yet you are telling us on this program that we do not meet the in-country requirement of this particular type of fish, or fish in general. What are the challenges, and how can we surmount these challenges? Yes, we have a formulation of a national blue economy policy coming upstream. Is this part of the constitution? First of all, tell us what is actually the challenge, and what are you doing as stakeholders to surmount these challenges? For us to have sufficiency in country, then for us to begin to think of massive exports.
Yes, so the challenge is there. We need to support the stakeholders, particularly those who are doing their business in that sector, like the small-scale fishers, the small-scale fish farmers who are actually doing the production. We have issues of lack of diversity in terms of the fish being produced in aquaculture sector. We have problems of just focusing on freshwater catfish when we have our marine and brackish water habitats. We have problems of feed. We also have problems of the seed to give to the farmers to produce more. So there's a lot of inbreeding in the catfish aquaculture value chain, and we need to address that promptly, otherwise the system would crash. And at the area of feed, some of the ingredients that are used in compounding the feeds, we are spending huge sums of money, I can't say exactly how much, to import. Something like the fish meal and all the fish additives that we use in making the fish feeds. So we need to look inwards. We need to address these issues through research, through funding of the research, so that we can get solutions to the problem and then advise the actors, the feed producers, on what to do, how they can harness what we have locally, the locally available ingredients. Why can't we produce that fish meal that we need to add to other ingredients instead of importing at this time when there's scarcity of funds? So we should look inwards. There are a lot of options that we can use to feed the fish, but still we need to do more research. We need to get people working. We need to provide them with the skills they need to do what they need to do, particularly in the aquaculture sector. Then in the small-scale fisheries, we have a lot of problems there, problems that have to do with overexploitation, mesh regulation. Yes, those laws are there, but how many people are following the rules? And who is enforcing anyway? What are we supposed to do? How can we enhance our fish stock, even in the natural habitat? We can think of restocking our water bodies, the lakes, the rivers, the brackish water ecosystem. We can think of helping the system replenish itself, doing some blue carbon ecosystem services like improving the wetlands, planting mangroves, strengthening the mangrove belts, because those are the natural breeding grounds and feeding grounds for most of these wild fish. So if we don't provide the basic things in the environment, at the end of the day, the fishermen will have little to catch. And from the beginning, we've heard that these fishermen contribute so much. Fishermen and fisherwomen. We call them fishers, or you can say fisher folk. They contribute so much even to the blue economy in terms of what they have to harness from the environment. And if the environment is polluted, that's also another challenge. We have
now,
problems.
Doctor, you have put the challenges as well as the solutions in right perspective. Now, the next stage that we will expect is implementation. What are the bodies? Who is responsible for the possible implementation of some of the suggestions you've raised there? Yes, most times we look at government to get to do it. Yes, there is also a national blue economy strategy policy that is coming on board. But where is the place of the private sector in all of this?
Thank you very much. So one thing I didn't mention is that in the blue economy, most of it has to do with involvement of the private sector. A lot lies on them, and apart from that, government provides the enabling environment. Let me move a little away from fish, and let's look at our ports. Our ports are not modern, so we need to develop modern and digitized ports that will support the blue economy. Now, whether you are talking of fish or cargo or anything that has to do with the ports, you need for the ports to have the various facilities that will make movement of goods and services in and out of the ports efficient. We don't want situations where people complain and the complaints keep coming in, year out. So now the ports have to be taken care of. We need dedicated ports for different things. Right now, what we have is everything comes to one port. Why not have different ports? Like for fish, you have a dedicated port for fish that is being imported, so we can even track what is coming in. And then another port for fish that is caught from our territorial waters. Jetties and harbors, landing sites for our fishing ports in the inland water bodies and the coastal systems. When we decentralize these things, it makes it easier to monitor what is going on, and also makes it fast for things to move in and move out without so many bottlenecks to cope with. So that's one way we can look at it. And we know that the Ports Authority that are there to handle issues about the ports. We know that NIMASA is there. We know that the marine and blue economy is also there. Looking at other aspects like the blue carbon services, the ministry is also doing a lot. Then we need evidence-based data to guide us on what we want to achieve in the various sectors.
Okay, talking about evidence-based data to direct implementation and all of that, can you quickly tell us about the plans for this national strategy that is being formed at this particular point in time?
Yes, for evidence-based data, that directs us to research and education. We've paid a lot of lip service in this regard over the years, and so this new strategy that is coming up is going to focus on adequate funding and budgetary allocation to research and education. We need to let people know exactly what the problems are and the magnitude of the problems and what it takes to solve these problems. Without carrying out research, without finding out what is going on, we can't move forward. So this is one of the areas that we are going to focus on. Another one, if you permit me to say, is security and safety in the blue economy. We can't run away from the fact that we need to be safe and secure while doing business in the blue economy. Everybody needs that, and that is coming even first before the research and the education, so that even the researchers will be safe to work in that environment. The educators, the trainers will be safe to work in that environment. The investors, the private sector businesses will be comfortable and safe. There are a lot of complaints of what's happening on the high seas, what's happening with the artisanal fisher folks. We need to address these issues. And what has been happening over the decades, I think there is a gap. And during the strategy planning that was organized by the African Union, Inter-African Bureau for Animal Resources, and funded by the Kingdom of Norway, supported by the Ministry of Marine and Blue Economy, we agreed that we need a national coast guard. We can't run away from that truth, that reality. And if we take it seriously and the strategy is to be fully implemented, then the National Coast Guard has to be in place. The Navy is already in place. The Marine Police are there. They should be strengthened. And they should have a plan and a procedure, harmonized way of doing maritime security.
Dr. Ebinimi, sorry to hold your thought at this particular point in time. There seems to be a whole lot to talk about the blue economy. So I tell you, this is a conversation that is ongoing. We would love to have you here again so that we'll get to attempt to exhaust some of these issues. At this point, I say thank you so very much for sharing such deep thoughts with us at this particular point in time.
Thank you very much for having me.